This week we got our first look at the new Murkmire patch on the live servers for PC and Mac. So I wanted to go through each class, look at the class patch notes and see what's changed. This time around we are checking out the Warden class changes. In the background I'll just be playing my Magical Warden build called Avalanche, and I'll leave a link for that build in the description. So here we go. So let's take a look at Animal Companions first. This is the damaging skill line of the Warden. Advanced Species got a buff, increased the bonus damage for each Animal Companion ability slotted to 3%, and it used to be 2%. So a 1% increase. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you think about Wardens might have like 3 or 4 abilities from the skill line slotted, it actually is going to add up and be pretty nice as far as increasing their damage. So this is strong. This is a strong buff. Betty Netch got a buff as well. So this was the resource sustain ability, and the resources restored is now increased by 40%, which is a lot. It now restores the same resources as channeled focus. So that's going to be about like 480, 500 magicka and stamina recovery, which is crazy. That's really good. So another really solid buff for them. Fix an issue with the beam effect on the ability. Okay, great. Dive. So this was always interesting. Cutting Dive, the stamina morph, never really did anything. It was just, this morph is now based on stamina, or this morph now costs stamina, and nothing else happened. So it was kind of boring, and now it reduces the cost as the morph effect. So still a little boring, but I guess this is good as far as increasing your sustain. That seemed to be a theme with the Warden. As far as what the patch changed here, they really focused on increasing Warden sustain. And cutting costs is definitely a part of that. So then you've got the Screaming Cliff Racer. This morph got a change. This is the Magicka morph, and it no longer has a minimum range requirement to get the damage bonus. So every meter you are away from the target adds 1% up to a maximum of 15. Okay, so there was a minimum range requirement before, but now there's not, so I guess that's good. The comment talked about range is an issue, especially if you're running Wall of Elements, so I like this. Falcon Swiftness, this was a really interesting change, and you could kind of see this as somewhat being nerfed. There's aspects of this that got nerfed, but it is actually a pretty strong buff when you look at how it's going to be used. So specifically talking about Bird of Prey, which even stamina morphs are going to use, stamina builds are going to use Bird of Prey, because the Minor Berserk buff is just too strong, right? 8% damage increase by having this buff on your character, and the only other real class that gets easy access to this is Nightblades, and we all know how strong they are, right? So the Minor Berserk buff is now passively granted. It's granted at all times while the morph is slotted, so that's really great, because on a Stamina Warden you have a lot of magic abilities like your resistance buff, you have your shield, maybe one of the healing abilities, and it was always hard to actually make use of this because of the cost, right? You can only run so many magicka abilities, and because of the short duration. It's like a 10-second buff, which was really hard to maintain. So the fact that this is now up all the time is really great. Can't wait to try this on Stamina and Magicka Warden. Just keep in mind that you'll have to have this slotted on your front bar, most likely, which it could cause an issue with bar space, but remember you also are going to get the extra 3% passive from Advanced Species, so why not? Okay, then Deceptive Predator, they're talking about the Minor Evasion buff in this case, which is now also passive. So Minor Evasion, now granted at all times while this morph is slotted, and there's no longer an increased duration to Major Expedition. So, and the goal, which I understand and I'm glad they're taking this approach, is to help reduce buff management, which was always an issue for Wardens because they have so many buffs going on. So I appreciate this. What I did not appreciate was the nerf to Major Expedition, so it went down to 4 seconds on both morphs, and that's just part of the change that they are doing overall to Major Expedition, so definitely a nerf there, but again, most people use the buff for the damage aspect of it, not for the speed. So Feral Guardian saw a bit of a nerf here, 30% damage decrease for the morphs of Feral Guardian, and that does seem like a lot. They're trying to play it off by saying that it's a power distribution thing, because they did buff, as we talked about earlier, Advanced Species, so that passive got buffed. You have a passive now for Minor Berserk, which you're going to have active all the time on your front bar. So I understand what they're going for here, and I didn't use the Bear Ultimate too much, so if you have any comments on this, make sure you leave those in the comments below so we can have a better understanding of what's going on with this ability. My issue with this has always been the targeting. I would love to use this ability, especially in PvP, but the targeting and the following of the bear pet is always an issue for me, so I try not to use it. Scorch got a buff as well, which I didn't imagine this needed to be buffed. This was a super strong ability to begin with, but they reduced the cost of both morphs, stamina and magicka, by 25%, which is huge. Really a huge buff. So again, focusing on the sustain of the Warden, it's looking really strong at this point. This is a change that I did not really understand. Increased the cost of Swarm by 30% as well. So what did they say here? So with the buff to Betty Netch and the reduced Scorch cost, we were able to get Stamina Wardens into a healthy place for drain per second. But they said that Magicka Warden was too inexpensive, and I guess this ability was pretty inexpensive to begin with. So, okay, I guess. I kind of wish they had a stamina morph of Swarm. That would be really interesting for ranged Warden builds. And I think the morphs are kind of not great of this skill. I wish the skill got kind of a rework instead of a nerf, but okay. It's more of a PvE balance thing, I guess. So green balance then, which is the healing skill line. So we're going to prioritize targets that don't have minor toughness. Okay, great. Maturation, which is the minor toughness passive, got increased to 20 seconds. 20 seconds total for the health buff. That's really cool. That's good. And then Nature's Grasp, which is a healing ability, can target your pet. Okay. So Winter's Embrace. This was probably one of the more talked about changes. Arctic Blast here got completely reworked. So it now fires a projectile that stuns the target in addition to healing you. And it requires a target to cast the ability. So I believe you didn't need a target before. So now you'll need a target, and now it's a stun. Okay, interesting. I guess what they're going for is that the Warden, especially Magicka Warden, did not have a class-based stun, and that they're trying to give this. I know that there were a lot of complaints, though, on the forum about we didn't ask for a change to this ability, and there are other abilities that you could change to do this, perhaps like Shimmering Shield or something like that. So this wasn't really a change that anybody asked for in this way directly, but that's what they gave us on the Warden. So I guess we'll have to live with it and try to figure out ways to make it work. And then last here is just a little visual fix on Impaling Shards. So overall, I thought the Warden class changes were buffs for the most part. It's looking pretty good for Wardens, looking strong as far as damage increase and sustain, and then dropping cost on a lot of abilities. So overall, Wardens are looking really strong next patch. looking very top tier in PvP and PvE, at least as far as the Stamina Warden is concerned. I think as far as how Magical Warden is going to do, we're going to have to look into that a little bit more. But that's been it for the Warden class changes. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.